Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We've got a session that is covering the MIA 3+2 program specifically. This will be for international studies majors and econ majors, or for those of you that registered that are in a different program and plan to transfer to one of those two programs, then you're in the right place. So we have an agenda that we're going to cover today that probably could last us a little longer than 6 o'clock. I know that's originally what I had scheduled, but we had some great questions yesterday during the MPSA event, and we needed more time to cover those questions. So just realize we may go over a little bit. We'll try to keep it no later than 6:15, but I do have some students joining us later in the session to talk about their experiences as 3+2 program students, one from each department, and they will also be able to answer your questions, or Ashley and I can answer your questions. So to get started, I'm going to put up our presenters and then we'll cover the agenda for a moment. My name is Catherine Meyer. I'm Director of Admissions Recruitment here at the Bush School. If there are any times you want to ask questions of either Ashley and myself, we both work in this office and can kind of give the general gist of the program, hopefully answer some of your general advising questions, but just realize most of that's going to have to come from your department advisor. Matt Upton is going to start off with here covering the career options, because a lot of times the questions you have coming out from undergrad is, what do I do with this degree? What can I prepare for? So I want him to set the stage of how we support our students, as well as the kinds of jobs you can look for. And then we'll have William and Lindsay both joining us about 45 minutes into the program. I've got a lot to cover. That's seen on this agenda that hopefully I had sent to you yesterday or earlier in the week. And this agenda is going to cover not only the career options, but the academic sections. We're going to talk about the tracks and the concentrations and how those work, the capstone projects that you're required to do for graduation, the co-curricular activities, which are the leadership programs, the writing programs, the activities you can be involved in as Bush School students, as well as some of the aspects about undergrad advising you need to be aware of. Part of that covers some of the financial situation that you might face, depending on the kind of aid you take in as an undergrad. We'll also cover the application process, what statistics look like for some of our students, the costs that are involved with this program, the kind of aid you receive from us, and then we'll move to the student insight part. So to get us started, I just want to remind you that at any time, if you do have questions, just make sure that you either post them in the chat or jot them down, and we'll open up the mic later when the students finish doing their review, and then we'll start covering those questions for you. In the meantime, if there's something pertinent, go ahead and shoot it in there. Ashley Treadway is the Assistant Director for Admissions, and she's on here answering questions as well. All right, so Matt, I'm leading it off with you. You're up.
Great, thanks, Catherine. Howdy, everybody. I'm also an A&M graduate and have been at the Bush School since the fall of 2003, so for a number of years. But I know that most of you, as you begin thinking about whether or not you want to do this 3+2 program, probably the first question you're thinking about, or maybe your family or friends or loved ones are thinking about, is, but what kind of job can you get with this kind of a degree? And so we want to lead with that information. Here's just a sampling of the types of things that our graduates are doing when they finish their degree in international affairs or public administration, but today we're specifically talking about international affairs. You might serve as an analyst. That could be an intelligence analyst in any of the intelligence communities. We're also seeing more and more analyst positions, intelligence analyst positions in private business and at the state and local level, and we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. You might find yourself doing analysis work of budgets or programs or policy, homeland security, national security, any number of things that you could find yourself doing there. You could find yourself being a coordinator of communications, and a lot of times people have a misnomer about that title, coordinator. I think it's a lower level position, but it's actually a really broad career term. And so it's something that you could be working on communications or homeland security, Emergency management, when you hear of people like the Texas Task Force One that goes out in response to national emergencies, whether that's a hurricane or none of you were alive when this happened, but 9/11, when that happened, or you, if you were alive, you were a little bitty. But they, our Texas Task Force One out from the A&M system, was working in emergency management. They went out, they may have been in a coordinator position. You may find yourself in a consultant role, and that could be either in government agencies or in private sector organizations, even doing work in money laundering. We've got a couple of alums who've done some money laundering and really anti-money laundering work, I should say, at Deloitte Consulting in South Carolina and in Washington, D.C. You may be developing policies and protocols. How do you respond to an emergency? And what are the best ways to go about doing that? If you're interested in law enforcement, whether at the federal level, the state and local level, or even the international level, you may be finding yourself working as an investigator. You may be managing nonprofit organizations or a legislative office, or you could find yourself working for a think tank doing research work, policy analysis, going back to what we talked about, and tons of other options. These are just a few of the things that our graduates are doing in the field of international affairs. So the next thing some of you want to know, Catherine, if you want to move to that next slide, you might be wondering, what are the types of government agencies or organizations that I might be working for? For international affairs, the majority of our graduates in international affairs, and when I say majority, I really do mean 50 to 75% of each class ends up working either for the federal government, typically for the US federal government, or for a government contractor. And when we list government contractors, we are really talking about those primarily that are working in the federal space, a little bit in the state and local space, but most government contracting is at the federal level. And you can see some of those agencies, many of which I'm sure if you've done any kind of research on our international affairs program, they're going to be very familiar to you. Central Intelligence Agency, FBI, Cyber Command, Northcom, Defense Intelligence Agency, Drug Enforcement Agency. Some of you may wonder why this Pacific Northwest National Lab. Well, there's actually a program from the Department of Energy that actually does nuclear nonproliferation. So it is a national security issue. It's just related to nuclear work. You may find yourself doing geospatial intelligence work, or you may find yourself working in international development and working for an organization like USAID or a government contractor like Chemonics International, which does additional work in international development. Some others on here that you're going to see that are going to look familiar are going to be Booz Allen Hamilton. They're a really prominent government contractor in the federal space. CohnReznick has been doing that, and they're actually here in Texas and in the DC area. So you'll see some of those that are going to look pretty familiar to you. The private sector, I've already mentioned Deloitte Consulting. You're going to see some other firms on here that are going to look familiar: Ernst & Young, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers. You may also find yourself doing work for organizations that are not as well known, like EcoVadis or Microsoft, which is obviously well known. We've had students work in Business Intelligence, one who's working in business intelligence for BP down in Houston, others who've done the same kind of work at both Microsoft, Amazon, and Starbucks. They're just not listed here. State and local government, you may be thinking, what if I don't want to go to Washington, D.C. when I finish a graduate degree? Well, you can see that there are a number of agencies here, even at the Texas A&M system and Texas A&M University, who are doing work in the international affairs space. You'll also see places like the Texas Department of Public Safety, or you might find yourself working for the Port of Houston, where there's obviously a lot of international trade. And then nonprofit organizations. Tons of organizations that are doing work on both the international and domestic front, and you see some of those listed there. Brookings Institution is actually a think tank, but they're a nonprofit in the in that space, in that international affairs space. So, Catherine, I'll let you move to the next slide there. So one of the things that you may also be wondering is, okay, so you told me about what kind of job I can get and where I can go to work, but what does it really look like? Where are the places that our Bush School graduates are going to work? And so you can see from the employment statistics there, as I mentioned, in 2019, 56% went into that federal government space, because I'm adding the government contractor to the federal space, as I mentioned before. 54% in 2018 and 62% in 2017. So you can see that number fluctuates. Right now, our students from 2020 are still looking for employment and will report employment statistics after 6 months. So they graduated in May and will typically report employment statistics in December, and December, January, and that'll reflect statistics collected through November and December. Keep in mind, obviously, COVID is going to have an impact on employment rates. So we expect our employment rates to be lower than that 81% this year. But just a couple of weeks ago, when I did a check of things, we were just about 50% employed, which was better than I thought at this time of year. Just really, there's a lot of uncertainty with COVID right now. So by the time all of you finish up, things should look a lot different. At least we all hope so. We also work with you individually, and that's really how we can provide the best resources to you. I've done career services at the Bush School since 2003, and then I've got two other staff members, Marilyn Santiesteban, who does career programming, career workshops, those types of things, and we have a series of 5 to 6 of those that all first-year students go through. And then Michael Cochran is our Assistant Director for Employer Relations. And he is the one who reaches out to employers. We have a career management system where we post jobs and internships. He manages that, makes sure jobs and internships are posted in there. We get those from going out and looking at websites that you would typically find international affairs jobs on and public administration jobs on. But then we also pull those from our former students from the Bush School, both from Tech and also from Texas A&M, and from other friends of the school. In addition to career services, we do have a leadership development program. Holly Kasperbauer is our assistant director for that program. And she leads things like Myers-Briggs Type Indicator and Strengths Finder to help you know a little bit more about yourself, and then how that applies to working in teams, how that applies to the type of work that you want to do, what you're well suited to do, and how you're going to utilize your teamwork in those capstone projects that Catherine will share with you about in just a little bit. That's really kind of a quick overview. I'm going to look at the questions because I know I saw one come up. Yes, would being a Bush School student or prospective student help us in getting internships at the federal agencies that were just mentioned? It certainly wouldn't hurt to demonstrate to an employer that you're interested in getting a graduate degree in international affairs and that you're interested in pursuing a career in this. And then the same thing for us. If you have done an internship with one of these federal agencies or one of these agencies or organizations that we've talked about today, that certainly doesn't hurt your graduate school application either, because it demonstrates to the faculty who are making admissions decisions that you have already invested time and energy into trying to see if that's a good fit for you. So no, that's an excellent question, and it would definitely help you in that process. I'm going to turn it over to Catherine. She will answer any of your questions, and then I'm not going to stay on, but she can certainly send your questions to me, or I'm happy to visit with you if at any time you want to speak more about career services and career opportunities in this field. Just reach out to me and let me know you were a part of the 3+2 info session, so I know that you've already received some information, but I'm glad to help in any way that I can. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt.
You're
and
welcome.
unlike Matt, I'm not going to turn on my camera. I just don't like seeing my face on the side of it when I record these. So I'll turn my camera on later when we have the students join us. But for now, I've got a lot of different aspects to cover, and I'm going to start with just the Master of International Affairs overview. So remember, you're doing the same exact program as the students who are being admitted with their degree in hand. It looks no different for you in the terms of how you put together your classes. You just apply a little bit differently through an internal app, and you get a little bit different for funding. But as far as the makeup of what the MIA looks like, it's the same. So it is still a 2-year, 48 credit hour degree. And you're not shaving any time off of the 2 years. Just by coming in this 3+2 year program, it could be a 2+2 program, depending on how fast you undergo your undergraduate coursework. But you're always completing our courses in that 2 years. There's just no way to speed that up. And we only admit for the fall. So you can't come in off cycle in order to work with this. So you just have to make sure that you're planning with your advisor to make that work. But you're using our tracks and concentrations and some of the electives that might be even outside of the Bush School to build the degree plan that you want to put together. So out of a class of 80 to 90 students, no two students have to have the exact same game plan. Just mixing and matching the different time of courses or the different concentrations will make you look different than someone else, even though maybe you're both pursuing the same type of agency or jobs. And you're going to receive both faculty and career advising along the way. We don't just bring you in and leave you on your own. You will be assigned a faculty advisor during orientation timeframe. You'll find out who that is. And then you also can go meet with the staff that Matt just talked about in their offices and figure out where you want to be and what you want to do and what kind of events you want to attend and find more about. Or maybe you want to ask Matt and the team for alumni contacts in a particular research area or a particular agency. And if we have students or alumni in that area, they're happy to reach out to you and talk to you about what that job does and the kind of skill sets you need to do to be successful in it. So we're here to help you figure this out. We just don't want you blindly coming into this MIA going, I have no idea what I'm going to do. You need to have at least an idea. You just may not have it all worked out yet. But you can also earn a graduate certificate credential while you're here. And I mention this because when you're taking certain concentrations, let's say that you're interested in Homeland Security. We have a certificate in Homeland Security. So by taking some of the classes that align both with our concentration and the certificates listing of courses, for no more money than what you're already paying for the MIA, you can also be taking those certificate courses as long as they're in-house, not web-based online programs, because those cost a little more. Then you can earn both an MIA with a certificate in Homeland Security. So you have two credentials for not much more than just having applied and been accepted into the certificate program. Now, I will say that there is one caveat to that, and that's that the CAIA, you have to have started that program before you start the MIA. Otherwise, they don't count it. You're getting an MIA already. The CAIA is the exact same thing. So they don't allow you to start it concurrently. It has to be started before. So you'd have to come in the summer before and coordinate that with their advisors and with our department. But when you're here and you're moving along, you get a choice between your first and second year of choosing either a summer internship, or you can do the language immersion or a study. And it's of your choosing what you want to do. It's not like we come back through here and say, oh, you're interested in intelligence, you're going to do an internship at the CIA. No, you're going to need to apply to multiple different options, see what falls in your lap, see what you've been able to work hard for and secure some kind of internship. And if something doesn't come along, or you had great intentions to work on your foreign language and you just have not had time, and you're now nervous that, wow, it's been a year now and I haven't touched my Farsi, my German, Spanish, whatever it is that you're choosing to do, I think I may want to go do a language immersion over the summer and let me get back up to speed on that so I can pass my language exam. And as a reminder, that language exam is a graduation requirement. So while you're not taking our classes in a language component, so for instance, you're not going onto campus and taking Russian higher level course, that's not counted towards your curriculum at all. You've got to attain all of this outside of the classroom. So language attainment is done through Rosetta Stone Access that we have and provide to our students. It's also done through language groups. And then you've got an opportunity for some one-on-one tutoring with some of the aspects. I'm not sure how that comes through, but our Foreign Language and Cultural Society sets some of those things up. You also can work with Professor Jim Olson. He's the one who heads our Intel aspect, but he can coordinate with you and talk to you about some of the resources we have available. But sometimes students just choose to go ahead and do that language immersion so that when they come back, they are prepared and ready to go and take that test. And you have to pass that exam at intermediate low. which means conversational level. So we don't really expect that you are fluent in it. It's great if you are, but you do have to be able to converse. So practice that conversation with others. Now, before I go any farther, I see there's a question, says, what's the benefit of a graduate certificate credential? It essentially is you're being able to add something else on your resume that may be specific, that for some people, it's not necessarily a Homeland Security emphasis, other than you saying that on your resume. You're getting a Master of International Affairs, but you're also earning a certificate in Homeland Security. So it's two kind of equal, rather than just saying, I got an MIA with an emphasis in Homeland Security. So it's a standalone credential that can also work, just in case you're interested. Now, back to this overview, you've got a semester capstone project that you're going to do with your classmates. And I'm going to cover that on a slide and a few more to let you know more about what that looks like. The foreign language exam we talked about, and then some elective courses. If you do decide to take a couple of courses online, just realize this isn't the format that we're doing right now with the Zoom and the face-to-face hybrid. That one doesn't cost you any extra. That's just what we're putting in place right now to get through this COVID crisis. But if you're taking a web-based class that is only offered online, and it's labeled a 700 class instead of the 600 that we, or maybe I reversed that, I said that first. 600 level is the web-based class for certificates, and our 700 level are our grad classes. You're paying an additional $1,500 for those. So just keep in mind, in order to take an online class to enjoy that flexibility, there is a higher cost for that. I don't know that a lot of our students do it, but just want you to know there is some option for that. And that only applies to electives. Your core courses do have to be taken here face-to-face or that hybrid version. So the tracks and concentrations, you have to declare a track. And I will tell you right now, if you're in the econ, then you're already having to do the IDEP. You have to do the International Development and Economic Policy, because the development that we created with that agreement with econ is tied to that track. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't take any national security concentrations. Sure you can, but at least one of your concentrations that are listed there has to be in green. It has to be one of those, or the brown. They have to be one of the tracks that are listed under IDEP or under both. Now, if you are coming in from international studies, you can choose either, because the agreement doesn't specify. Now, normally, because you guys are coming in from specifically in INTS, you have to be in the diplomacy section, right? You can't come in through communications. You can't come through GIS. You have to come in through that diplomacy track in INTS. It's, again, part of the agreement, but you can choose whichever track you want. And then you guys get to choose any two concentrations as long as one is tied to your track. So in this case, if you're coming in from international studies, you may want to choose American diplomacy and foreign policy as one of your concentrations. And then now you can choose from any of the others. There's no linkage to an IDEP or a both or regional study. It can be any of them. To complete a concentration, you have to take 3 courses to fulfill it. And there are sometimes that some of those will double count, some courses double count for both. So you just work with your advisor on some of this. Before I move on, I see there were some questions. So I'm going to see if there's anything that I can specifically, or if they're very nuanced to a specific person, I may not. Do we have to take our language exam in the foreign language that we currently enrolled at A&M now? No, you can pick any language you choose to do. So for sure, most people will follow the same language they've been studying at Texas A&M, but if you're a language speaker with multiple ones and you just started Arabic, but you're more comfortable with high school Spanish, then take the test in Spanish. Now, I'll say that if you're studying regional studies for Middle East, you're probably going to want to do the Arabic, but maybe you take Spanish first and get it out of the way. We pay for that test, by the way, the first time. If you don't pass it, it's on you. But if you pass it and want to do a different test in a different language, we will pay for that exam as well. So you've got some say-so in what you're choosing to do. Now, as far as the curriculum, there's 4 core courses, 1 track required course, and 11 electives. And it's that 11 electives that really makes this a flexible program. So everyone, either in their first semester or their second semester, so fall and spring, are going to be doing the quant methods, international politics, and global economy. And then depending on your track, whether or not you have to do a second level of quantitative methods, or if you're an NSD, you're doing American foreign policy. And then you're choosing those electives out of your concentration area. So if you're in diplomacy, then you're probably picking 1 or 2 classes. Maybe Professor Napper is presenting those. Or you can just take a hodgepodge of classes that are of interest to you, depending on what's open for that semester. In the summer, you're typically doing an international internship. Well, I say international, it can be domestic too, obviously, Washington, DC. Or it's a language and cultural study. And then you come back in semester 3, you're doing 4 more electives. I put or study abroad because there have been students who do go abroad and work with one of the universities where we have a reciprocal exchange. And so maybe you're working on your Mandarin and taking classes in China. We've had some students who have done work in Wales. We've had some students, I believe, in Korea. So there's a couple of these agreements that I believe are on our website, or I can look them up later, that you can do it. But I don't know that a lot of our students do the study abroad for a full semester, primarily because it throws them off cycle and they don't graduate with their class in May because they're now behind because they've been away and they may not have done all 4 classes. And so maybe they have to do summer school in order to catch up on some stuff and then graduate in August. So it is an option, but I don't know that a lot of people fulfill that part. And then in your final semester, you're doing a capstone seminar and 3 more electives. Now the capstone, I'm going to go in a little more detail here. This is where you are working with a client. So each faculty member who is leading a capstone is tasked with finding a client that wants some kind of consulting work done for them. So many times they're going to follow those same agencies that we have for our sectors. So for federal agencies, it may be one of the private areas. It could be CIA, it could be Deloitte, it could be whatever, right? Whatever they think that they need help with a student project run, they're going to put out their synopsis and what they want the students to do. And then the faculty is going to coordinate with that group of 5 to 8 students to figure out the end project. What is it you're going to present to them at the end of all of this? And so you're getting a list of 8 to 10 different capstone ideas and options. And it's going to list the project name, kind of the work that they think you're going to do, the instructor who's doing it, and when they're meeting. And then you rank order your top 3. And then it's our faculty and staff who are going through and putting you together with one of those capstone projects. So you may not get your first choice, but you will be getting one of your top 3. And then they're putting that out there and you work with your classmates for that semester. It is extremely taxing of your time and the effort that it takes to put together a project in about 4 months. It is time consuming. You guys get angry with each other because as in group work, you can imagine some take on more responsibility than others. Some are just busy and can't quite get to it. And so they fall behind and then someone else has to put it together. And that's why Matt mentioned earlier, Holly often works with a leadership program to come in and set the stage for these capstones and talk about the roles they need to play, how they need to work together, that the end project's going to be here before they know it. And so both she and our writing person, Cindy, will meet with those groups just to make sure that they're all on the same page and know those expectations. It's difficult when you're doing this in the final semester, along with looking for a job and all the stresses that come with that. And remember, our students are doing 12 hours at a time at the grad level, which I'll go into more detail with that.
Hey, Catherine.
Yes, question?
So I've had a couple of inquiries about doing a 2+2 program, and I know that Will is currently pursuing that. So if we could stop, and he has offered to provide some insight on his program if we want to do that now or later.
Do you mind, Will, if we just wait and do that later with you? Talk about the 2+2 and how that works? Yeah,
whatever
let's
works.
come back to that one. Because I know that's going to be pertinent, but it'll just work better later. So put a pin in it, come back. So the co-curricular activities, Matt had talked a little bit about the leadership program already. So Holly is working with you guys, giving a number of workshops that are voluntary. You can attend the ones that you want. She's doing them all right now via Zoom, but normally she has a sign up list and you guys can meet together in the rooms, and there may be 20 or so people. And so you're getting to know your classmates better and interacting while you're also fulfilling these workshops that might be Myers-Briggs assessments or your colors, or stress management or time management. She's got all kinds that you can sign up for, but she is a resource for our incoming and current students. The writing program is Cindy working with you guys. A lot of it might end up being more one-on-one with the faculty and how she can assist them in getting some resources, but it's also some reflections on the work that you're doing for your internships. She wants you to think about what you're gaining from those internships and turning them into answers that you can eventually use for interviews and career jobs, right? They're asking you questions and you don't have the job experience to fall back on to talk about this. And so she's giving you options to pull from your capstones, for teamwork assessment, for things that you did in your internship, so that you now have some robust answers that you can easily pull from during a job interview. So she's going to help in a number of different ways for that. But not only is there a leadership program, but there's a certificate that by completing a number of different tick marks, right? I'm a leader of a program for a volunteer, or I've attended these number of workshops. I know there's a couple of things, and maybe Will or other can talk about in a minute, but it's a matter of going, I've completed these things and I've earned now a leadership certificate that you can also promote on your resume. And the writing program combines with the leadership program, that if you get that certificate and you complete some of the writing program aspects of that reflection and looking over papers and some other things that she requires of you, you get a Medal of Excellence. So this is a medal that you actually get to wear at graduation. And it is some extensive work that you have to do to earn it. But I would say on average, out of a class of the MIA and MPSA together, we may graduate around 160 to 170 students, and maybe 20 will get that Medal of Excellence. So it's quite a prestigious accomplishment when you can do that work for it. But it does take some effort for sure. There's also a number of speakers and conferences that are hosted here. Right now, those all have been converted to Zoom. I don't know if any that have been in person, but speakers, there's usually 2 a week. And we keep the hour open from 12:20 to 1:20, typically during a schedule, so that we can have these speakers come in and you have time to go listen to them. You're not going to be in class during that hour. It may be conflicting against a student organization that might be presenting, but we want you to go and listen to these speakers. They're not only academic based, but they're also brought in for career services. And they're giving talks on what their jobs are like. And that's how some students find networking connections that they then use for internships. So definitely you take advantage of those opportunities if they're of interest to you in your MIA field. And there's also a number of conferences. I know of 2 that are typically held on the IA side, and one of them is Women, Peace, and Security. That is usually offered, I believe, somewhere around in November. And then there's a pandemic conference, if you can imagine. We've had that for a number of years. I believe that also had been done in the fall, or I'm pretty sure it has been. I haven't heard about that one if it's been held, but these conferences are a great aspect to go out there and get involved. Not only maybe helping host it in some capacity, or just attending it. Now, the study abroad, I talked a little bit about being able to go a semester abroad with one of the reciprocal agreements that we have. But even more so that's used by our students is usually we will offer 1 study abroad per year, sometimes 2, every spring. So if you sign up for a 3-hour course credit for whatever trip that they've decided and set up, then you get a 3-hour course credit for that. It does work with study abroad here at Texas A&M, so sometimes you can find some funding for it. But you're also completing the work for that to get that 3 hours credit. And then the trip is usually taken in May, somewhere around that May 10th through 20th. And then you come back and submit your paperwork and get your grade recorded. There's also a number of centers, institutes, and programs. And the reason I mention them here is because they are the ones who bring in a lot of those guest speakers. Very dynamic, recognizable speakers in many cases. We've got the Scowcroft Institute. We've got the Grand Strategy for the Albritton Institute. And new ones that are coming in for programs is the Intel Studies, working with Professor Olson, Women, Peace, and Security, Cyber Policy, and a Middle East program. So these are all great options that if you are interested in a particular area, as these programs grow, there may even be sometimes research opportunities with them. Sometimes there are professors who are involved with those that are also doing writing, that you can sometimes be partners with them in writing, just depending on the kind of research you're interested in doing with them. It's a very collaborative environment. So I'll get the students to talk about that and how they work with each other in classes. But this is not a silo type program. You will be working with others quite often in group projects. This is meant to be helpful to you because the careers that many of you are pursuing, you have to learn to work with others and have that outreach and learn how to be effective in groups. And then as far as student organizations, we have any number of our own here within the Bush School, but a lot of our students, especially the 3+2, you're also involved in your own undergrad type of organization. So you just need to find balance for how you can use your time to get your classwork done and enjoy those networking opportunities. But we've got a public service organization that does outreach in the community. This is one of the project pictures that we had here where we were painting for US map on the elementary schools playgrounds. And so it was a lot of fun just to have those interactive opportunities with your fellow students. Student Government Association is very active here. They've got reps for both the MPSA and the MIA programs. They also have a number of committees which involve social and traditions. They've got international connections that help our international students. They've got the fundraising. Typically, I believe that goes with somewhat with the philanthropy groups. But they're trying to raise money for the different groups within the SGA. There's the green for those that are looking for environmental issues, tailgating when we get it back, the graduation when we get it back on track, and then intramurals with Bushwhacker Athletics. So we actually have a student or two who coordinate our intramural teams so that, again, they can have some fun outside the classroom. There's a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I believe it's now separated from SGA, not 100% sure on that. Foreign Language and Cultural Society, Alexander Hamilton Society brings in foreign, well, I say foreign speakers, but it's actually international topics. And then European Horizons does the same kind of thing. And then the Ambassadors Council is students who wear our nice blue blazers and jackets and help represent us at all the events that we have. It's completely on hold right now. We do have ambassadors, they're just not being able to host anything. So I'm sure they're a little bored in that, a little lackluster, not being able to interact with the donors and the events that sometimes they get to drive to Houston and interact with some people. So the next part, we want to talk about the undergrad advising. So remember the two programs that we're working with is International Studies and Economics. You have to work with your undergraduate advisors from the get-go. This is for you to be sure that you've completed all your undergrad requirements by the time that you're coming to us, unless those classes are being double counted for credit from our courses to you. So you're applying when you're at that 70 to 80 hour mark. If you apply later than that, you're going to miss the boat. So be active and ready for that. You enroll with us when you're at the 102 to 103 hours, depending on your program. You have until the end of the summer to knock out all those entries. So if you're a little short coming in May, you can get another 6 to 9 hours over the summer to help you qualify for that 102 hours if it's necessary. But coming to me or Ashley to ask us, hey, can you take a look at my degree plan and make sure I'm on track? That's not for us. That's for your undergrad advisor. They have to be able to coordinate with you on those. We're just not familiar enough with the classes to give advice that we can 100% back. And if there are some unique situations that you have to clarify, we send you to the MIA department and you can talk to Peg Hosey with those. We just don't want to necessarily give advice that isn't true because we don't work with degree plans at the level that Peg and your undergrad advisors do. So remember, you have to have, by the time you enroll with us, a 3.25 in econ, and you have to have a 3.5 in international studies or above by the time you enroll with us. So if you plan on applying with a 2.7 GPA, you're probably not going to be able to get that GPA up in time. You've got to be close. If you're applying with a 3.127, then you might be fine if your next semester goes well and you can get it. So many times if you're applying with that below it, you'll get a conditional admit. And then it depends on what your spring grades or even your summer grades show. And we have had to decline someone who did not. This happened multiple times, that didn't get the grades they needed. And we just say, sorry, you just got to continue on in undergrad. Come back to us when you get your degree in hand. And we're happy to reconsider you at that time. So remember, save your necessary courses because you do want to try to count up to the 18 credit hours that our courses will count towards your undergrad. Now, part of your cost savings is this 3+2 is that you're applying with an internal app, so it doesn't cost you anything. But you have all the same requirements that I cover on the next slide. And you are also paying undergraduate rates in your senior first year. So you're saving the money on our fees that you don't have to pay, and you're not having to pay the higher grad school rate. So you do save some money in that context. And then you convert to the grad rates coming into your second year with us. Now, there's a federal financial aid issue that I'm covering on the next slide that will affect just a couple of people, but I have to talk about it. Because if you are receiving federal aid, that's Pell Grants, federal loans, there's an issue. So let me explain what this is about. Typically at the grad level for our Bush School students, you're doing 12 hours in the fall and 12 hours in the spring. In the 3+2 program, you're still a U4, you're still a senior. So in your first year, remember, you can only double count 18 hours. So the 12 hours in the fall, you're fine because all those hours are counting towards your undergraduate degree and you're in good shape. But when you come into the spring, they're now only going to count for federal financial aid 6 hours. So if you're counting on that Pell Grant or those federal loans to cover all 12 of your hours, it's not going to work. They're only going to count 6 hours. So you're going to be out of pocket to pay that money either through your own savings or your parents helping you or however it works. So you have to work with Texas A&M scholarships and aid just to make sure, what do I need to do if I'm a federal financial aid person and I'm accepting this? Now, if you're an institutional award or a state award, none of this is impacted because they're counting both undergrad and grad coursework. So you don't run into those same constraints. It's just the federal. So as a second year, you're back on status because you're now a G7 and full-time student back on. So just keep in mind, federal financial aid has a little bit of an issue. So when you're applying to us, remember, you have the same exact requirements as everyone else. We need well, for you, it's an internal app. For everyone else, it's Unicast. They have to pay an $89 application fee. You don't have to pay anything. So you just save some money and some time because theirs is quite extensive and yours is about 2 or 3 pages. We do need a statement of purpose. We do need an international experience essay. We need a resume. I will say on that resume, you typically want to drop off most to all of any high school reference. 3+2s are the only ones that I sometimes go, you know what, that's relevant. Maybe that's important that you go ahead and keep that in there because otherwise you don't, sometimes students don't have a full page of great experiences. And so if that helps to have some element of it, you could, but most students drop it off. Most are just relying on what they've accumulated in their 2 to 3 years in undergrad. You will need 3 letters of recommendations, but the GRE is going to be optional because you have to come in with above a 3.2. And so at that stage, it is optional. I know there's a lot going on in chat, but I think Ashley mostly is covering all that. So I'll come back to it in a second. And Ashley, interrupt me if I need to stop on something. As far as Texas, yeah, as far as Texas A&M transcripts go, we pull those directly for you. So, all right. So there was a question I see real quick. Is the GRE is optional? Do most applicants take it? No. We ran across, I don't know, Ashley, do you remember it was about half, maybe 2/3? No, sorry, about 1/3.
It was about half that provided GRE scores, but
And some of those are required.
and yes, but in the case of the 3+2 students, since they have to have above a 3.2 GPA even to apply, the GRE or GMAT is optional. And out of last year's applicants, I did not have anyone submit scores for 3+2.
Definitely optional, and it means optional. It's not a optional, but we encourage you to. It is up to you. Whatever you think. If you think you're a good test taker and it can help you, then submit them. If you take the test and don't do as well as you think you can contact Ashley and she can pull them and not have it be part of your record. So that's just an email. So as far as the steps and timeline go, remember our priority deadline is December 15th. It's going to be here before you know it. We encourage you and push you to chat that deadline because it gives us time to process. So we appreciate it when you give us time to get everything ready. We open those applications for faculty in January. The January 15th is now the hard deadline. We had people that kept applying into late January last year, maybe even into February, and we just didn't have time to get to them. So now we said, you know what, it's a hard deadline. If for any reason we decide to extend it, we'll let people know, but hit December 15th if you can. We're going to start putting those forward to the faculty. We'll move over the most promising applications for interviews. And those interviews are going to be conducted in any number of ways. It may be face-to-face in some context. I'm not sure yet. We don't even know if we can hold the interview conference weekend yet. Definitely we'll have Zoom, Skype, or phone interviews, or maybe one-on-one with you coming in and meeting with a professor who allows that during the week of it. We'll see how this works. But for now, just block off that MIA weekend of February 26th and 27th. We do plan on holding something during that time. It just may be more of an online Zoom programming. March, we'll make admissions decisions, usually around March 10th. You'll know, maybe March 15th. When we give admissions decisions, we also give aid decisions. So you'll know how much money you have coming in. And you have until April 15th to let us know if you are going to enroll with us or not. And yes, we've had students who are accepted for the 5-year program who do turn us down and go, I've had a change of heart. I don't think I want to do that anymore. Not a lot, but some. Okay, so criteria, just a real quick overview of this. The admissions committee is both faculty and admissions staff. We are evaluating your file holistically. So that includes both your support materials and your interview. We're looking for fit and success. We want to be able to ensure that those that are admitted to the program can do the work and do it well. And we're looking for fit to the program. Are you guys coming into this program preparing for public service or nonprofit or the private sectors that we prepare you for? We always get a handful of students who are looking specifically for a PhD to do research, and that's not what we do. So those are easier to turn down. So we are looking for some of these aspects. For the 3+2 students, maturity, knowing what it is you think you want to do and preparing for it. Now you may nuance that and change it a little bit while you're here, but it's not coming in and going, I don't know, this just made sense to me. I'm getting ready and I think mom and dad thought this was really good for me to do. Okay, that doesn't bode well. What about you? I don't want mom and dad involved in it. This is your decision, your enthusiasm for this type of career path. So just make sure that you're prepared when you're meeting with those faculty members, and you're going to know who they are. So you need to look them up and do a little bit of research on who they are and what they study and teach. The interviews are going to be double what the intended class size. So if we're looking for 90 students, we're going to interview 180. And when we admit those 90 students, only 3 to 10 of those are going to be 5-year students. It's usually closer to 5 or 6. This year we brought in 10, and we're going to see how that goes. We love having international study students and econ students. You guys are some of the best and the brightest. We just can't admit as many as who apply some years. If 20 people apply, we're not going to take 20. We're just going to take 5 to 10. So that's where it becomes a little more competitive and cutthroat. So again, those decisions come by mid-March. Just so you know, the average GPA for this year's incoming class was nearly a 3.7. And then the average age is a little bit younger. Normally it's closer to 24, 25. This year, because we admitted a lot of younger students, 23 was the average age. And then the average class size that you're going to sit in is about 16 students. So there's no hiding in a big classroom. This is very interactive. You have to come to class prepared and having done your readings. All right, almost done here, but MIA cost and aid. So we are awarding scholarship to every student that we admit into the MIA program. At some level, you're going to get some scholarship. But as a year one student coming into the 3+2 program, you only get $1,000. That's just our standard, no matter what. U4 designation, you come in with 1,000. But we'll tell you in your offer letter what that converts to in your second year. That could be a $3,000 scholarship. It could be a $5,000, could be $10,000, could be $11,000. I said that wrong. Yeah, no, $11,000 or more, which is usually $15,000 or maybe a different award. But generally, most of our 3+2 students come in at 3 and 5. You're fortunate if you can get more than that, but you've got to be the top of the top. Almost a perfect GPA and a really strong GRE or background or something that spoke well with faculty for them to want to grant you the $10,000. Now, you get a chance to apply for a graduate assistantship in your second year. But if you get that position, you have to give up the whatever award you were given for that scholarship. So if you came in your second year, you were supposed to get $5,000 and you get a GA position working for one of the professors, you have to give up that $5,000 because you're now earning a grad assistantship funding, and we don't double dip within the Bush School. Now, having said that, there are other departments here at Texas A&M that have RA positions. They have GA positions. They have Gantt positions, non-teaching. They have GARs for researching. If you get a GA position in a different department, or let's say with International Student Services, and you're working for them, that's outside GA position. That's not the Bush School. And in that case, you can keep their money and our Bush School scholarship. So just realize there's a little bit of a difference in how those graduate assistantships are awarded Bush School versus outside of us. And then if you get an internship over the summer that does not provide funding, there is some funding that you can apply for through the Career Services Office to help you out. And how much you get is dependent on the location that you will be in. So you get more if you're in Washington, D.C. than if you're in Houston. So the cost for year one, just keep figuring what your current rates are. Most of you get a locked assessment, so you know what you're paying when you do 12 hours or 15 hours. You're going to be doing the same kind of thing here in your first year. It's year two. We estimate somewhere around $13,500 is our tuition and fees for your second year. And that's before your scholarship kicks in. So you get to subtract if you get a $10,000 scholarship. You can see that you're not paying a lot out of pocket there. Okay, so I know that I've kind of gone through quickly, and I can start reading some of these chats and come back in a minute, but I want to give some time for William and Lindsay to come in and speak. So what I'd like you two to do is go ahead and, Will, I'm going to start with you and have you go through why are you pursuing the 3+2 question, and then give Lindsay a chance to answer. And then we'll just go one question at a time. So I'll also have you, Will, maybe you want to start with the question we put on hold for that 2+2, and then we'll get into this, why did you pursue it? So Will, I'm going to be quiet and you're up.
Gotcha. Let me scroll back up through the chat, find the exact 2+2 question. So the big thing with the 2+2 is that you're going to want to go ahead and talk to advisors early on in the steps. Like, I know the Howdy week before school, I was in the Bush School advising office as well as international studies to go ahead and have those conversations of how am I going to go ahead and work out hours. So really just talk to advisors about that. The big thing it's for me is that, so congratulations, you took AP classes in high school, you're special. And now you get to go ahead and come in and do this awesome program. It is a fantastic experience. The classes are everything you could dream of and more. They are challenging, they are rigorous, and they are educational. I cannot list an undergrad class that can compare to the Bush School classes because they are that much better. The biggest downside to being a 2-2 is you don't get to go to Margarita Tuesdays with some of the other guys, just because, you're still 20. So it's a fun time. Are there any specific questions about the 2-2 program though? Cool. So I'll move on to why to pursue the 3-2 program. First, for cost savings, that means that you're at the very least going to be saving an extra year on education. At the same time, not only are you saving money, you're saving time. Time's kind of your biggest asset, especially if you want to do government work. In addition, it means that you're going to get maturity, you're going to get writing experiences, and you get to go ahead and slap the "I'm a graduate student" on your resume a step further. And that's awesome. It's just been a phenomenal experience. I'll pass it over to the next person.
And Lindsay, that's going to be you if you want to go ahead and answer too.
Hi. Yeah, so I decided to do the 3+2. Coming from econ, I wasn't really sure like what I wanted to do with that degree, since there's a lot of different things you can do with an economics degree, and I knew I was interested in development. And so the Bush School just seemed like a really great opportunity to get just more like subject matter knowledge in that area and more experience, since I was going to graduate early from undergrad. And again, like he said, the cost savings are really like unparalleled. I looked at going to other graduate programs, and really the Bush School, you get you get a lot of worth for what you're paying, and just really tacking on an extra year to your undergrad to get a master's degree is really helpful. So yeah, that's kind of why I decided to do the program.
So Lindsay, go ahead and answer the next one too. What were some of the things that you saw for expectations in class? Some of the responsibility that might have been different for a grad class as exposed to an undergrad class, that kind of thing?
Yeah, like you said, the classes are a lot smaller, which is really great. Most of my classes at A&M were like 50 to 100 people, I would say, and I've really mostly had 10 to 15 in most of my Bush School classes, which is great. And it's usually kind of a combination of lecture and class discussion. So the reading load is a lot heavier than it is in probably any undergraduate course here. But it's really a lot of, I think a lot of deeper learning than I did in any undergraduate class. And it is, I think there are higher expectations on you in classes to come to class knowing what you're talking about and what the reading was over, and knowing what your questions are, and being able to contribute fully. And yeah, the small class size is really, I think, the biggest probably benefit of the program, especially coming from A&M as an undergrad.
So Will, that's your turn now.
Gotcha. Okie dokie. First of all, classes are one day a week. No more of this Monday, Wednesday, Friday stuff. It is one day a week, and that is fantastic. It is this 3-hour chunk of a class where most professors will give you a break in between to go ahead and get water and take a breath. Classes also, there really isn't a busy working class. You are 100% there. You're 100% engaged. You are expected to contribute to the discussion, to have debates, etc. With that, kind of going off of the reading load, you need to be used to reading. You need to be comfortable with reading 300 pages for every class. So if you do the math and you're taking 4 Bush School classes, plus let's say you still have an INTS 481 or 497 you need to get out of the way, that means you're going to be reading upwards of 1,200 pages a week. That's just a reality. You need to be comfortable doing that. You need to be comfortable reading not only for comprehension, but also just for concepts. You need to be able to get that across, get the message across, and then be able to present on the message. I know in the international side, you're also expected to give presentations. The way most classes work is an hour 30 is a student-led presentation and discussion. An hour 30 is then a professor lecturing. that's just another part of the experience. You need to get used to public speaking and being able to deliver a point effectively and with concision.
So I do want to clarify one thing. Will, you're talking about a 3-hour classes all the time, but it's not always like that. There are some classes that meet Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. But typically Friday classes are going to be more of the capstone courses or a unique course that that professor only comes in for that Friday or Thursday. And so you may only have a 3-hour, but a lot of them are chunks of 3 hours. And so, yeah, you've got to get used to paying attention during that time. But it does knock it out, and it makes you have to then realize the kind of homework you've got to get done over the next 7 days before your next class.
Like today,
So-
today I don't have, oh, sorry to interrupt. Today I don't have any classes. I woke up at 7, began reading. I took a nap at 2, and then I went back to reading and back to writing a paper. Today was not an off day for me. I was blessed to be able to get in 1 round of Warzone today.
So let's comment on that. And I'm going to jump and say, how many hours do you spend studying? And that could be by class, that could be every night. Just what kind of system do you have in place? Because time management is always a huge aspect of this. What do you spend? And then Lindsay, I'll have you answer.
What system do I have, or what system should I have? Because those are two
How about
different
both?
things. So the system I should have is I should go ahead and space out the reading where I get a little bit done every night. The system I do have is usually Monday morning, I prepare for my Monday 1:30 class, and I wake up early, usually at 7, and then I spend the entire morning reading until 1 p.m. So if you do that math, 7 to 1, I'm spending about 6 hours, if that's right, preparing for a class, which is pretty standard. I do about the same routine on Tuesdays. Then Wednesdays, I get prepared because I have 2 classes tomorrow and 1 class on Friday, the class Friday requiring a reading response. So that's a lot of little details, but I spend about 6 hours per class studying for the class and getting material ready. And that's not including time I spend writing for the class or time I spend going ahead and doing preparations for presentations. Like I have a presentation that's a little less than 2 weeks out that I've started preparing for, and that is separate from the main reading I'm doing for the class.
And Will, I want to ask you really quick too, before I go to Lindsay, how much of your work on the MIA side is group oriented so that you can spread out some of that? Well, I say spread out, but you're trying to share that load of reading. Because I know the MPSA side talked a lot about that they wish they had known to get those groups together and really share and talk. And I don't know if the MIA side does the same thing.
So MIA, to be a little bit dramatic, is more of joint alliances than any sort of groups, where I know that if needed, I can text at least 4 different people who owe me favors to go ahead and get notes from readings, if needed. But for me personally, it's better to go ahead and read it myself and comprehend that. In terms of group presentations, usually I'm working with 1 other person for those. I know in the 3 classes I have presentations in, 1 of them I'm doing solo, and then the other 2 I'm working with 1 other person. So I think some of the group focus may come in my later classes where it'll be a group of 3 or 4 different people. But right now, independence is really being stressed for me personally. And that goes back to what you said about maturity, where you really need to have a mindset of, my parents aren't pushing me. I'm not going ahead and just being daddy's special boy. Instead, you really have to be a self-driven, self-starting person.
Okay, what about you, Lindsay? On the econ side, I know it looks a lot different, or at least somewhat different. So what do you experience in how you study and maybe some of that group work concept?
Yeah, I think the biggest adjustment for me was going from homework assignments and problem sets in econ to just pages and pages of reading each week. I would say maybe average 10 hours a week doing reading for classes, usually a couple hundred pages per class. And I have been in reading groups for classes too, where we kind of split up the readings and then brief each other on them, which can help make the reading load a lot more manageable. And then I would say adding on top of that, for sometimes a class will have reading assignments or reading responses do a couple times throughout the semester, a policy memo, things like that, that would add some hours to like my weekly workload. There is a lot of group projects, assignments at the Bush School, I'd say probably more than in your average undergrad class, which is beneficial. It can be frustrating. I think sometimes people struggle with kind of balancing like their own individual workload and then their workload through like group projects, because we all have such like a heavy workload. Yeah, for example, like this semester I have one of my classes, pretty much like 80% of our grade is it's a semester long group project where we're like designing a research proposal and experiment. And so that is a good opportunity to work with 2 other students and throughout the semester, and have all kinds of different assignments and projects for that. Yeah, I would say it's a good balance. A lot of larger assignments tend to be just individual. Like I've written a lot of large research papers, kind of like term papers that are just individual. But it's a good balance, and I think it is on the whole like a good lesson to learn how to work with other students for your career.
So leading that, which is great, the career aspect, how much have you attended in terms of any type of speaking engagement that maybe Mike has set up in the Career Services office to learn about new opportunities in internships or career that you didn't know about before, or what you plan to do or did do for internships, some of the networking? So let's go on the career aspect for a minute. So Lindsay, start with you and then we'll follow that up.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of employers that come and speak at the Bush School. Even now, they're all on Zoom, but there's still just as many as there were last fall, which is great. I go occasionally. A lot of them are just like not quite aligned with my interests because I'm in the IDEP track, and they get a lot of federal employers for sure. Internship wise, last summer was obviously kind of different, and it was very difficult to get an internship, especially since a lot of the types of internships that we apply for recruit in the spring. But the Bush School is really great about providing us alternate opportunities to like gain experience and skills last summer. So pretty much every professor in the International Affairs Department offered some kind of research opportunity. So I worked with Dr. Robertson throughout the summer on a research project that he was doing with another Bush School student on global value chains in the Middle East. And that was a really great opportunity to kind of build my data analysis skills even more, building off things that I had learned in some of Dr. Robertson's classes. But in a normal year, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for just to learn about all the different career options that are available to you. And I think that the career services people are very accessible and knowledgeable and always willing to like look over a resume or cover letter. And the professors are also a really great resource career-wise. A lot of them are former practitioners and have been working in the field for years and have incredible amounts of contacts. So I was in Professor Natsios's international development class last spring, and he was really great about getting us connections of people he knew at organizations that we were interested in working in, because he knows pretty much everybody in the development world. And so the professors are a really valuable resource for figuring out what you want to do, and also for helping you kind of reach out to people in your field.
So just to kind of echo off that, I totally agree with everything Lindsay just said. If you are keeping your eyes open and looking for opportunities, they will pop up all over the place. I got the opportunity to go and listen to some counter intel people come and talk from the Navy. One of the here's something I didn't know, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be sharing this, so feel free to start muting me if I'm going off here. It's not an entrance exam, but you do pass a test at the beginning that goes ahead and refreshes all of your international studies knowledge. And it's a really comprehensive test, but one of the requirements is you need to know the 17 different intelligence agencies, at least for the MIA side. there are 17 different agencies that are looking to hire you if you have an international background, if you have a study in international studies. That's important. It means that there's a lot of career opportunities for you as long as you're keeping your eyes open. A very small thing to add here. Let's say that you've enjoyed going in between jobs or going in between residences. That's awesome, great for you. Start writing those down in case you have to fill out what's called an SF-86. Just take my word for that. One of the other opportunities that some of my professors have done is they bring in guest lecturers. Those guest lecturers are great contacts. Like, I was going to show y'all my reading load. This was my reading load for one of my classes for the first week. This is half of my reading load for a class that'll be next Monday. But I'm really going to pay attention to this one and make sure that I actually take notes over it, because I know that my professor is bringing the writer of this book in to speak over Zoom. So I want to make sure that I have good questions to make a good impression there. One other little tip, taking notes by hand is great and improves comprehension. Type those notes up when you get home, so that way you can Control F on the notes. Just makes your life a whole lot easier, because some of those professors, you're allowed to have your laptops out, but they'll randomly start picking on people. So if you could just Control F whatever they're talking about from like 2 weeks ago, makes your life easy.
Good to know. And those are all good. And yes, it's okay to share that there's a test when they come in, and to know those kind of agencies, because they're going to know it at some point over the summer. So it's all good. So in order to us to have time, I want to do one more question for each of you, and it's advice I wish I knew when I started. So think about the context of that. And students, if you guys will think about the questions that we haven't covered, or if there's anything else, I know Ashley can ask me a question out loud if need be that I haven't done. But Lindsay, let's start with you for a second. What do you wish you knew when you started that you didn't at the time?
I think I wish I just had a clear picture of why I was pursuing a master's degree and what I wanted to get out of it. I think we've kind of made it clear that the Bush School is what you make of it. There's so many opportunities that it can just kind of be overwhelming. And I think I wish I had just kind of sat down and said, what are my goals for the next 2 years, and what do I want to come out of this degree? What kind of knowledge do I want to have? What kind of specialty areas do I want to focus on? What kind of skills do I specifically want to build and focus on that, will help me get a job when I graduate? And I think that all those things have kind of come to me as I've, been here for 1.5 years, but I wish I think I could have taken advantage of things more had I kind of known more of what I wanted to kind of focus on and specialize in, rather than just kind of knowing, I want to work in international development in some sense. So I think, just having a clear picture of why you want to do it and what you want to get out of the experience will really just make your time here more worthwhile, and being able to pursue the classes that will help you that way, figuring out which professors specialize in that area and can help you out, what kinds of internships, or perhaps a language immersion is really what you need, as languages are a very valuable skill to have. And I wish I'd just kind of known to have very clear set goals for what I wanted to come out of the master's degree, knowing. So.
Gonna go ahead and echo what Lindsay said. Just go ahead and have a specialty in mind whenever you walk in the door. One of the worst parts of a 2-2 experience is that I did not walk in with a sort of specialization. That a lot of my friends who were graduating, who I had had in classes, said, yes, I am an expert in this area. I'm an expert in cybersecurity. I'm an expert in national security. Because of the limited time I spent in undergrad, I am not an expert in any of those areas, so I'm constantly playing catch up. You need to figure out what you're an expert in. I really wish I had known that. I also wish that I had known that because you're still classified as an undergrad student, you don't get the really good parking pass. So that kind of sucks. But that's life. Other than one other bit of advice that I'd like to give is be smart with scholarships. There are some scholarships that don't close until the beginning of school year outside of the A&M independent application. If you're able to apply to the scholarship and say, ah, yes, I'm a joint degree student who is still classified as an undergrad, a lot of scholarships will let you go ahead and get some of that funding. That means you're going to be able to get some more money. If you reach out to me after, I can give you a few names, but other than that, just be sure that you're ready to take on a level of independence and understand just how much better the classes are here than they ever were for me in undergrad. Like, this has been already just such an amazing experience. And those of you who know me, I see a few familiar faces, will know that like I don't get excited about stuff that easily. So these classes are just that much better.
And I'm going to say that both Will and Lindsay have their email addresses here. So that if you do need to do some follow-up specifically with them, with Lindsay for econ and Will with INTS. And Will, if you start getting a bunch of these, feel free to throw them over to some of your classmates if they can answer them more effectively so you don't drown in these. But we're here to help. So if there are some questions on your mind, just unmute yourself and hopefully you don't speak on top of someone else, but we'll get you. I plan on staying on here for at least another 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, I see there's a question in the chat. It says, to the current students, what kind of undergrad organizations were you in, and did you study abroad at some point? So Lindsay, start with you.
I was kind of involved in some random organizations in undergrad, nothing very like related to what I'm studying. And I also transferred to A&M. So anyways, I did study abroad. I studied abroad between sophomore and junior year in South Africa. And that was really kind of like the impetus for applying to the Bush School and studying development. I did a program through Mays that I would highly recommend if anybody is looking for a study abroad, where you work with 2 entrepreneurs in Cape Town and work as business consultants. And that was kind of how I got interested in development in the first place, and was a really great experience to have coming into an international affairs degree. So I would definitely recommend that you try and study abroad if you can.
I did TAMU's speech and debate. I'm actually still the president of it. Because of all the new graduate stuff, I'm actually going to leave that role. And so I'm actually working on the turnover part right now. In terms of study abroad, I did my study abroad from my apartment this summer in St. Petersburg, which was, a grand COVID time. So I wish that I had gotten to do an actual study abroad, but, live and let learn.
So there's been a couple of questions that I'm trying to open up beneath. One of them was, what is the average acceptance rate for admissions? So specifically for the MIA, we're looking at numbers that are probably closer, let me see what this says, about 76%, well, 74%, and it was 71% the year before. So we're hovering somewhere around between that 70-ish mark. But for 3+2 students, it's going to be a little less at times because, again, as I said, we can't admit a lot of you to make up of a class. So on average, we're only going to do between the 5 to 10. And if there's 15 of you, then odds are pretty decent. It's half. But if there's 20 of you, then it goes down. So yours are a little bit different than the average acceptance rate. But it's nothing like Will's 2%, he says, as he's just kidding. And then it says the language aspect of the program. Do we have to have taken undergraduate foreign language classes? And what if we haven't taken any? You don't. There's people who come into programs that are Bachelor of Science or other aspects of a program that didn't include language, and that's okay. You just need to indicate during the application what your level of language is, in what language you're using. And a lot of times during the application, they're going to ask you what that is. We just want to ensure that the people we are admitting don't say, I'm a beginner, I don't have any language, but I'll learn it as I get there. Because the ultimate part of that is you can do all 16 classes, but if you don't pass that language exam at intermediate low, you don't graduate with your diploma. And so we want to make sure that you have some exposure of something. So if you're not doing it in your classes, make sure that you're working outside of class for these. And then another question was, does not having previous international experience hurt your chance at acceptance? In the past, depending again on how competitive that application pool is, not having something can possibly hurt you somewhat. But remember, we're looking at a lot of different factors, including your writing ability and your statement, your interview. Things are a little bit unique right now because there's some people who are supposed to have done a study abroad and they can't. And so you're missing your window of opportunity, and we know that. So you just have to be creative in the way that you're expelling your abilities in international experience and the kinds of things that you're reading and the language that you're working on and the opportunities of developing relationships with people from different cultures, and really talk about those. I just won't know exactly how impactful that is until we get some more applications and know what you're up against. Any other questions? Anybody want to unmute themselves? You're welcome to do that. Or we're going at 6:20 and everyone's ready to leave, and that's okay too. I do want to just encourage you that I've got another part on here. We have some additional opportunities for interacting with us. So I've got 3 more online webinars that are covering the co-curricular aspects, the career development, Matt's going to do that one, and the financial aid and how that relates to graduate school. So those are coming up. You're welcome to sign up for those on our website. And then I also have some unique situations. These are Zoom Q&A hours. So tomorrow we will have an hour from 12 to 1 where you can go to the Zoom link that's on our website under the recruitment events and click on that. And I'm just sitting there waiting on people to come in and talk to me. I've had as few as 0 to having 7 or 8 that we talk the whole hour. So if you do have some legitimate questions that we didn't get a chance to answer, or you want a little more follow-up and you're open from 12 to 1 tomorrow, just log on. And I will be there for sure, possibly Ashley. And then we also have some ones that are coming up where a student will be on there with us. Dylan Armstrong is my current GA. So there's other events. I've got some open houses as well, but check the website. And then Bush School Admissions at TAMU is our email address. So we're here to help you. But in the meantime, I'm going to stop this and I'm going to put this on the website in the next couple of days and I'll email it out to you. So if there are some follow-up you want to do, just go back and look at it. But I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you, Lindsay and Will, for being here. And you guys reach out to them if you need them. Y'all have a great evening. Thank you so much.